Captain Sisko is cooking with peas and carrots. Jake Sisko wants to know what Kavarian tiger bat smells like. And Zial asks Garrick on a date at 9 p.m. in a sauna. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 7th Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and I like saying sauna.
Sauna.
Today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine Season 4, For the Cause, directed by James L. Conway, and written very well by Ronald D. Moore. How are you today, Cirroc?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Pretty awesome. I like this episode. It was one I remembered, and I liked it a lot. So,
what did you remember about it before you? What, like beforehand?
Only bits and pieces because it's been such a long time. So what I remembered was, the main crux of this was Eddington, which was why I was always prying with you about like, oh, what do you think of Eddington? What do you think of?
Yeah, the moment finally came.
Right. And so I remembered that. I remembered Kasidy being kind of mixed up in this, but not in a good way, not like an accidental way, like actually doing some bad stuff. That's the extent of what I remember, and I remember, Garrick talking with Zial and how weird it was that suddenly they got an actress that's like 5 years older to make it less weird.
Right. So I did notice that Zial was not the Zial that we saw before.
Thank goodness, right? Because if Garrick is, she's going on a date.
It would be super awkward, yeah, especially in the steam room, like you said, or the sauna. But yeah, I could see that you would remember those things. This is definitely the episode that kind of it kind of reaffirmed what I believed about Eddington this whole time, because you notice I was suspicious of him this whole time, and I thought he was up to something, and then he kind of earned my trust because he wasn't really doing anything.
Right.
So you're like, well, it's 4 or 5 episodes now. He hasn't sabotaged anything. He hasn't died on a away mission. So I guess he's here to stay, and I guess he's, part of the crew. But there was this always in the back of my mind, this like suspicion about this guy. And of course you egged it on with, what did you think about Eddington kind of questions, but I just felt like I never felt like I could trust him. And I'm sure he played it that way, but he has one of those kinds of faces where you're like, what else is this guy thinking? He's also thinking something else.
Where he always seems like he's holding his cards close to his vest. He's always like, okay, sure, no problem. Whatever you say. And you're like, what's going on here? Like people like Garrick and Cardassians, they want you to be suspicious. They want you to say, I don't know what this guy's really thinking. But the Eddington character doesn't want you to think that. Eddington character is trying to get you to be like, oh, he's fine. Like he's just like, yep, everything's fine. Nothing to see here. He's trying to play all cool. Yeah. Makes us even more suspicious.
Yeah. But then, that kind of goes away because you see him enough and you're like, okay, well, this guy's, I thought he was suspicious. I thought he was holding back. Maybe he's just reserving his opinion because he's trying to suck his way up all the way to the top of the, the hierarchy of the command system, structure. So I'm thinking, well, maybe he just wants to be the chief security, or he wants to be the, I don't know, some other kind, or maybe he's working even for Section 31 and he's kind of, just watching things. And I felt like there was a part of him that was interested in his career movement, right? Like I thought that he wanted to move up in Starfleet, or he was interested in his position and place in Starfleet. That was something that I felt maybe just subconsciously about his character,
Yeah, really interesting character. The actor is Kenneth Marshall. Really hope we could get him on the show sometime. Real quick, let's give a quick shout out to our friend Timbaum. Timbaum, we see him sometimes in the free for all. Hopefully, he'll be in this one later. We just want to give a shout out to him because he's always got such a great and infectious laugh and so many fun things to say. So shout out to Tim. Hopefully, he's listening in and he can be like, "That's me," and we'll be like, "Yes, it is."
Yes, it is. Fear the beard with Tim Baum.
Also, very quickly, everybody at home, check out the Voyager documentary on Indiegogo. The link will be in the description box below. We are heavily involved, and it's a lot of fun, and it's doing really well. And it's all one love with Star Trek. Deep Space Nine supports Voyager. Voyager supports Enterprise. Original series is like, screw you guys. No, I'm just kidding. Original series supports everybody. Anyway, so shout out to that. Please take a look at that in the description box below. Let's talk a little bit more about this episode because I took so many notes and there was so much good stuff. It's one of those episodes that's easy to talk about, right?
Yeah. And then I have some other like personal things that I want to interject with maybe at some point, but I do. I had some points to make about this episode. I thought there were a few moments there that were really poignant. Specifically the ones between Jake and Sisko. This was a different dynamic that I don't think we'd seen before. And what I mean by that is, you see, before Jake was trying to hook his dad up on a date.
Right.
And he was like, get over, you got to get over mom. You got to move on. I want to see you with some companionship. And there was a very innocent kind of wantingness for this to happen, a want. But now at this point, especially with the scenes, I felt like when he walks in, he's like, hey, get a room, guys. He talks in a different way. It's a slightly different way, right? Because now you're walking to the room, you're like, hey, why don't you guys get a room or something, right? All right, you two, break it up. That was the line I wrote down.
Right.
And so he's like, break it up. Right. So you see what I'm saying as far as
and then when he
kind of maturing.
And when he's missing Kasidy, he was like giving him the business. He was like, "Oh, you miss talking about." So I was like, "Wow, it's a different side of Jake." All of a sudden,
yeah, I noticed that too. And he was really going on. Guess you're not used to sleeping alone anymore. Used to her companionship, and he kept playing with the words, right? And that just to me shows that Jake's even more comfortable with his dad and even talking about the subject of, them in bed together, essentially. So he has a little bit of a comfort level now, I think, because time has passed and because he too is maturing and having kind of adult conversations with his dad, is starting to be able to feel like he can make those kinds of jokes with his dad, right? He's like, Dad, I'm just joking. He's like, yeah, I know. It's not funny right now.
But it actually kind of hit close to home because the opening scene did show that Sisko was getting used to and enjoying sleeping with Kasidy. Like there's that really nice moment where when she gets up out of bed and she leaves, he smells her. Actually, I remember this too from before. He smells her pillow and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's the stuff right there." And then he moves his stupid pillow over. He's like, "This is the one I want." And that was such a good added personal touch there, because we do, link people to smells, and we do appreciate smells or scents of a significant other, or sometimes it just reminds us of something, or it makes us feel comfortable. So that was a really cool moment. I do wonder. That's the kind of stuff that I wonder if that was developed in the writers' room. Like they said, "Oh, make sure to put a thing where blah blah blah," or if that's just Ronald D. Moore taking his homework home and working on it, saying, "Ooh, here's a nice little touch," or whatever it is. I always wonder where that comes from.
Yeah, I do too, and I just know that Avery's so good at these kinds of moments and these subtleties that my first instinct is to accredit him, but certainly our writers are that good that they can also write some of those kinds of subtle nuances. But I did like that moment because it just shows that they have this level of comfort. She's like, continue to sleep. You know how when you're in bed and you don't want to wake somebody up, so you're like, no, just go back to sleep and rest, and don't get up because I'm up. And there was also that kind of intimacy between the two of them that I enjoyed. But at the same time, she's kind of lying to him this whole time, right? She not is kind of, but she is lying.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we kind of do these mental gymnastics when we're watching this of trying to say, well, it's not really that bad. It's for medical supplies, or maybe she didn't know, or what. But then at the end of the day, we're just like, man, nope, she just, wow. It's pretty major, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to think that if the role were reversed, would it wouldn't have, I don't feel it like it would have been let go of that easily. So if, for example, I'm lying to my wife or girlfriend or significant other about where I am, and she specifically asks questions like, you're going here, you're going to do this, you're going to do, like, exactly, like that you have to lie to get around or to avoid. And even if it was something, let's say, slightly good, like, or that it could have a good benefit for people, I just don't know that lying and trying to get away with that, carving out of time and space without being honest, is going to be something that flies.
Yeah, and he was definitely noticeably prying. When there's that moment when somebody starts going, "Oh, so that's where you went, huh? Okay." And oh, that's weird. It usually takes a little longer than that. Or are you sure? And then you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's just because we took a turn." And it's this weird tug of war, this weird give and take where both people are aware that there's a little bit more going on, but nobody wants to say it. If you're the person being asked, you're kind of like, well, what's really going on here? And if you're the person doing the asking, you're like, come on, let's give me a little more. Let's hear it.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this before in another episode that we did, but I talked about Colombo, and this is the Colombo moment in this episode. Colombo
or the Shield. What
right.
What the Shield was to Aron is what Colombo is to you.
Yes. Colombo is my shield, and one of the things that he does so well on that show is when he has the moment that he has information that he believes the person he's talking to knows the answer to, incriminating perhaps information. He always goes about it into the same kind of fashion that we saw displayed with Kasidy and Sisko, and that is, there's just one thing that I can't figure out. It takes about 6 hours to get there, and it took you 9 hours, or something like to that effect, and won't let up on that point. And I felt like that was the kind of exchange that we got here, except in this. Well, no, similarly, Colombo and Sisko would let it go and say, "Well, all right, I'll let you run with that answer."
Yeah,
but I have some backup checking to do again.
Right. It's just getting a little bit more information, not just what the person is saying, but also how far that person is willing to divulge things. So it's not just getting a little bit more information, but it's also getting the information that the person being questioned doesn't want to give, that isn't, that's beyond what they're actually saying. Then if you're the questioner, you're thinking, okay, she's willing to go this far, or she's willing to not divulge this, or this is the question that made her uncomfortable, or whatever it is. You start kind of piecing it up. Because that's when Sisko started getting more suspicious. At first, he was just like, okay, well, let's just poke around a bit. But then based on her responses, he started going, you know what? I need to put my own personal feelings aside, because there are some red flags here now.
Exactly. And I think the biggest thing was the avoidance of the question. At some point, she said to him, well, "Why don't you just look at my flight log?" Like she didn't want to answer any more questions. She's just like, "If you want to know more, you're the captain, right?
Google it.
Google it, basically." So I thought that was kind of like, that's once again like a defensive mechanism. When people are hiding or guilty of something and they're covering something up, they usually get defensive. And like you said, oh, that's the question that elicited that response. So now I know this is the thing that you're covering up, protecting, or bending the truth about, and it'll just inspire me to be more curious and go farther into in the investigation, right?
Yeah, and since we're on that subject, probably the best line. I mean, this whole episode had a ton of subtext in the scenes. Star Trek's really good at subtext. Deep Space Nine especially, and there was a lot of subtext between Garak and Zial at first, but putting that aside, the most was when Sisko was saying, actually, I think it was this scene, when Sisko was saying goodbye to Kasidy, and the first time when he's saying like, "Hey, why don't we just go to Risa?" And she's like, "Oh no, I wish I could." And that was the nail in the coffin there. That's when he was like, "Okay, I gave you your last out. I went even farther than I probably should. I stepped over a line as a captain by giving you an out, but you didn't take it. And now, God help you. That's it."
And I think her final kind of reply in that moment was, "I have to do what I have to do," or something like, "I have to stick to the mission." Yeah, I've got commitments, or something like that. It was basically, I pledged. It was like a pledge or something that she's like, I promised in a pledge. So it's like, basically, I've given my allegiance somewhere else other than to you and to us, right? To something that trumps our relationship. And so that's one thing that I did notice that. But I thought that the thing you were going to highlight was a different subtext. And this was a poignant moment for me. And that was when Jake and Sisko were sitting. And it was just after the moment where he was ragging on him and he was making these innuendos about the two of them in bed. Then Sisko says, "Yeah, I'm just having a bad day," or something to that effect. And then I feel there was a moment where he says, he grabs Jake's hand, right? And he holds his hand in his hand. And he says to him, "This is important, you and I."
Right. Yeah.
Things change, but not this.
We must bring salvation.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. It was close to that, but not quite. Not the Michael Jackson version.
That's the one. Can you hit?
But what I got, not even close. I won't even try.
Anyway, please. Sorry.
No, I won't. I won't try it. But this is what I felt, and I don't know, Ryan, because as a parent, there's like so much that you want to tell your child, right? And that's the goal of life as a parent, is like to transfer as much knowledge as you can, transfer all your wealth, to set them up as best you can in life, and let them be prepared for all of the things that are around the corners, right? So you're like, this is what to expect when you first fall in love, or this is what to expect when you get your heart broken, or this is what to expect when you are facing college admission exams, or whatever it is that you're going to go through in life. And you want to prepare them as best you can. But there's also sometimes where there's moments where you don't even have the words to say what you want to say. And you don't even, and not only that, but sometimes they're not old enough to receive those words because they can't understand those experiences yet. Right. And I felt like that was the big moment there for me that really resonated. When he's holding his hand and he's like, "This is important." Like, he's trying to tell him how much this means and this moment means, but he can't really get it out with words. Right. And I've felt that same feeling with my daughter, and so I kind of was like, wow, that's so much subtext there. I love the way they wrote that. I love the way they kind of made that moment and that emotion really real for Sisko, and it shows me how much love he has for his child, the same as a parent, any parent.
Right, and it's compounded by the fact that he's bound by Starfleet, that he can't talk to anybody about it. Even his own son, who he wants to tell more than anybody, because it's not just a Starfleet matter, but it's a personal matter. So it's like it hits double hard. And it's just one of those things where he's just like, I wish I could talk to you about it, but I can't even tell you that there isn't it. I just have to. And he's thinking like the pain, and he must feel really torn that this is his girlfriend that he loves, who's not only betraying him, allegedly at this point, but that he is the one that's going to have to catch her and put her away. And he's just like, God, that's got to be one of the hardest things ever. And that's why he's talking to Jake and saying, man, what we have, you would never do this to me, man. And it just starts making you really cling on to the things that you do still have when you lose other things that are close to you.
Absolutely. And it's just like you said, you would never do this to me, man. It's like, it's us, man. We're a team. And it's also, I am in front of the pain that you're about to feel. Like, I know what pain you're about to go through as a result of this. You're gonna, first of all, it's the person that you introduced me to, so you're gonna feel some type of guilt for or responsibility for, introducing me to somebody who then turns out to be like this, right? You're also gonna lose the person that you love as this motherly figure in your life for a while. So I mean, he's looking at so many impacts of this situation on how it's going to affect Jake going forward, and I think he brought that up to her at the end of this episode, towards the end, where he says, "How could you do this to Jake?" Right? It wasn't even about him at that point.
Yeah,
he's like, I can understand how you do this to me, but how could you do this to Jake? You lied to him. You've been deceiving him,
And he must feel like before this, he must think, wow, what a relief. My son has gone motherless for a while, and I may have found a Band-Aid. I may have found this lady that I love, that loves me, that's great, but also somebody that's, another parent for Jake in a way. And so he's probably thinking like, dude, yeah, I can only imagine, because they do a really good job of showing that, Jake is Sisko's number one priority, always, the way it should be. And, they show that throughout the entire series. And so when he says things like that, we absolutely believe it, where he's like, I'm a grown ass man. I'll heal. But how could you do this to my freaking son? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful.
And that was kind of poignant and powerful for me too. That was another aspect of this episode that I thought was well told, and great storytelling by Ron Moore.
Mm-hmm. So looks like we're going to take our break in just a minute here. There's so much more to cover. Yeah, I knew this was going to be an easy one to talk about, because there's so much. So we've only hit like part of the A plot, basically. B plot obviously being Garrick and Zial, and maybe we won't even cover that. But
no, I mean, I think it's worth covering it.
Totally.
There's a lot of good stuff there. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a super quick break, and so fast people won't even know we're gone, and we'll be right back on the 7th rule.